بسته شدن راه توسط مردم در بابل خیابون مدرس.
I really appreciate this film for showing events that I had no idea about. It was actually really shocking because they happened a couple years ago, but as they said in the film, media coverage in the West has largely ignored it. So thank you for making this piece and for bringing this to light. I was amazed at all the footage. There was so much of it, and it was all right in the thick of these protests and this violence. I couldn't imagine being so close to it. It was really hard to watch the information about the victims, especially the children. They were so young, but they did a really good job here of showing that these were people and not just deaths to be counted at the morgue. They had families, they had their whole lives ahead of them. I thought they did a really good job of including some American media clips. It was a great way to show the context of these events in relation to what was happening in the Western world. I thought that if they had actually showed more, that it would have made for a stronger piece. But otherwise, this was edited really well, and I hope it gets seen because it was really eye-opening.
Oh, what a tragic tale. I thought that this film was very effective in its choice of how to present the subject matter. There wasn't any, um, um, I don't know, dressing up of the subject. It was just very mostly raw footage. I thought the choice of telling a few different stories and then at the end making it crystal clear that there were just countless more of these same stories was a very effective way to get the message across, and intermixing the brutal photos of just the sheer massacre that was going on in Iran, juxtaposed against um, what we were being shown here in the West, just really brought home how willfully disregardful our media is about the things going on in quote unquote enemy states. They just don't care. But these are people. We should care. We should help these citizens. It would be a way to I don't know, get things better in the world. Um, yeah, so very powerful documentary, very effective in its choice of how to tell its story, and I really hope it gets wide circulation, because these are the types of stories that we should be exposed more to in this part of the world.
This is a very brief documentary of the events taking place on November 2019 in various cities in Iran, with violent, very raw and graphic footage of people's outrage and disgust being crushed down by police forces or authorities with um, guns shooting at what would seem like peaceful manifestation. They show us the injustice and disregard for human life and freedom of speech that took place very openly in this November 2019. They also show the role of international media, the Ayatollah, and the government oppression in what the results of this couple days uh, started for the people in Iran, all based on the gasoline prices. They also show finally the situation the detainees currently are currently facing, with some of their human rights deprived, and also of different numbers that people got killed are reported different media outlets, and depending on who's asking and who is doing the news. It was just a very violent quite shocking film, and in general, I thought it was quite brave.
So Bloody Petrol was an absolutely grueling 50-minute watch. Some of the footage shown here was absolutely horrific. And I think if there's anything to say about the compilation of all this footage of people undergoing incredible violence and murder in the streets of Iran at the hands of police forces, it's that sometimes there's no beating around the bush, and the easiest way to communicate your point is just to show people the truth of a situation. Not only did I not know that this conflict was happening, which is obviously the point of this film, but I think I learned a lot about the way that media can be skewed to support a government's sort of regime and their message to international populations. It was heartbreaking to see the way that the government responded, where these people were just left to fend for their lives. And overall, this is a absolutely traumatizing watch, so your discretion is advised, but you will learn something.
I thought that the film Bloody Petrol did a great job providing exposure and raising awareness surrounding the events of Bloody November, especially being this was something largely overlooked by Western nations and media at that time. I think that the film provides an opportunity to memorialize the individuals whose lives were lost in this conflict, and also for their families and their loss, to honor that and share their story in some way. I think that aside from that, the film brought up the way that Western nations and their media don't cover global conflicts equally. And I think that watching this is an opportunity for anyone as a resident of one of those Western nations to reflect on why that is, and to consider how we might be able to raise awareness ourselves and bring attention to things like this in the future. I think that the film also did a good job of showing the conflict within Iran and how truly senseless the killings were, given the fact that the majority of these protests were intended and stated to be peaceful.
This was a really sad but informative documentary. I thought it handled the stories and the loss of life really well in terms of presenting the profiles and different last words and lives and stories and family testimonies. I think it made it also more heartbreaking, but I think it was also a really effective portrayal of events and how the world covered them in the news. I thought it was a very well done documentary.
Very shocking, very enlightening film. You know, we often as a society say this sort of thing happens every day, but there are so many things that slide by that we don't know about. You know, this particular course of events that occurred in 2019 with, you know, the speech being made, with gas prices being raised 300% overnight, and the ensuing protests and the ensuing killings that happened afterwards. This is not a thing that I personally knew about. And I dare say most Americans didn't know about, and a lot of the world, it seems, from what the film is saying. But this is this is very shocking and enlightening, as I said. It's good that this has been made to bring these events to light, you know, and we're seeing the actual footage of these things happening, and it was very difficult to watch. Anyways, I hope this film gets out there and gets seen. You know, it was very well put together, and it brought to light a lot of events that most of us don't know anything about, and just the loss, the death, the devastation that occurred here it's very sad and shocking, and these are kind of things that need to come to light and need to be remembered so that we can prevent these sort of things from happening again. So I hope this gets out there and gets seen, because it's very important.
Bloody Petrol was interesting. It talked about Iranian oil conflict, the Middle Eastern oil conflict with the rest of the world. And it had a lot of firsthand imagery from, the Middle East and the people there and what they had to deal with under authoritarian dictatorships and dealing with that. And then you go, on the other hand, to the United States and how all that conflict impacted oil prices and then prices of other, other goods. I think it rings kind of true as right now we're going through our own, sense of inflation surrounding oil and, surrounding everything else because, transportation. So I think this piece kind of translates as its, history, and it helps better understand the current situation. But you do a good job of piecing together news clips and personal footage together to create a piece that kind of explains what was going on during the Iranian oil crisis back in the early aughts. So good job at doing that.